I'm leaving you. Her husband was hastily packing his belongings into a suitcase. Kirsty winced involuntarily, remembering how she had just ironed those shirts yesterday, smoothing out every wrinkle. She shook her head. "Giles, how can this be?" she exclaimed. "What happened all of a sudden?" "Sudden," the man replied. "No, dear, it wasn't sudden. This has been coming for a while." "I don't understand anything," Kirsty cried. "Everything was fine between us. We didn't even argue." The man approached his wife and looked her in the eyes. "Do you really not understand?" "No," she shook her head. "Can you explain what's going on?" "I need an heir, and you are infertile," he stated, angrily snapping the suitcase shut. "That's not true," Kirsty whispered. "The doctors say there's nothing wrong with me." "But you refuse to get checked. So, you're blaming everything on me," her husband shouted. "Just so you know, I'm fine too, and soon I'm going to be a father." "What?" Kirsty sank into a chair. "You're having a child with another woman?" "Yes," the man said proudly. "And unlike you, she will give me an heir." "Leave," the woman whispered. "I don't want to see you anymore." With pleasure, Giles tossed the apartment keys onto the table. "I'll come back for the rest of my things later. I hope you'll let me take them from your apartment." He emphasized the word "your" to hurt Kirsty even more. Grabbing his suitcase, he left the apartment, slamming the door behind him. The apartment fell eerily silent, with only the sound of water dripping from the kitchen faucet. Kirsty had long asked Giles to fix it, but he always brushed it off, promising to do it soon, but never did. Kirsty and Giles had been married for 5 years and had met at work. He had joined the company where Kirsty was already working as a sales manager. He didn't have his own apartment, renting a room from an elderly woman. He had come from a village, enrolled in college, and worked various jobs like courier and loader. After getting his diploma, he landed a job as a sales manager, moving from one organization to another until he ended up at their company. Kirsty was also from a village, but she was luckier. Her mother's cousin lived in the city, much older than her. The woman was childless and had long been a widow. Kirsty's mother wrote to her cousin, asking her to take Kirsty in, at least for the beginning, when she would be starting college. Aunt Ruby didn't refuse but immediately set her conditions. No late returns, no friends in her apartment, and Kirsty would cook separately. The girl agreed to everything, just to avoid living in a dormitory, which had not the best reputation. At first, Aunt Ruby was strict with her niece, but Kirsty was very helpful and always tried to assist. She cleaned the floors, dusted, washed windows, and took out the trash. Gradually, Aunt Ruby changed her attitude towards Kirsty and began cooking for both of them, seeing how much Kirsty studied and even worked part-time delivering mail in her free time. So, after a year, Aunt Ruby and Kirsty lived harmoniously, and Aunt Ruby even started calling her niece daughter, and got jealous when Kirsty went to the village to visit her parents during holidays. As promised, Kirsty always returned home on time. She had hardly any friends, except for one, Yasmin, who had always lived in the city and took Kirsty under her wing to help her adapt to city life. Kirsty wasn't modern, she didn't wear makeup or have trendy hairstyles, just braided her light brown hair. Of course, compared to Kirsty, Yasmin looked very striking. Boys constantly approached Yasmin, but no one paid any attention to Kirsty. Aunt Ruby even scolded her. "You should be out dating while you're young, not spending time with an old woman like me." Kirsty would laugh, hugging her aunt, and reply, "I'll have plenty of time for that. Let me finish college first, and then I'll think about dating." Aunt Ruby would wave her hand, but inwardly she was pleased that her niece was growing up to be a decent girl who thought about her future. Aunt Ruby always had high blood pressure. She took medication morning and evening, but if the weather changed, she suffered from severe headaches and would stay in bed all day. One day, when Kirsty returned from college, she found Aunt Ruby lying on the floor. She called an ambulance. "It's very good that you came home in time and called us immediately," said the doctor, removing his gloves. "Your aunt has had a stroke, but we managed to catch it early. The most important thing now is for her to follow all my recommendations and, of course, complete rest. Her speech might be a bit impaired at first, so don't be alarmed. I'll prescribe some medication for her, and you need to make sure she takes it." "Doctor, thank you so much." Kirsty stood by the wall, trembling slightly. "Would you like a sedative?" the doctor offered. "No, don't worry," Kirsty waved her hands. "I'm fine." The doctor looked at Kirsty attentively and smiled. He was impressed by her genuine concern for her aunt. If only there were more good and caring relatives like she, he thought. So many just dream of inheriting property, not caring about their elderly family members at all. After seeing off the ambulance crew, Kirsty cautiously entered the room where Aunt Ruby lay on her bed, quietly snoring. Kirsty adjusted the blanket and was about to leave when she heard a movement and turned around. Aunt Ruby opened her eyes and mumbled, "Kirsty, come here." "What?" Kirsty didn't understand. Aunt Ruby motioned her over with her finger and pointed to the chair beside the bed. Kirsty sat down and looked at her attentively. "Call a notary for me," she said with difficulty. "Call a notary?" Kirsty repeated. Aunt Ruby blinked in agreement. "The phone number is in the address book." The next day, Aunt Ruby felt better and even ate some broth, which Kirsty fed her with a spoon. A few days later, the notary arrived. Kirsty didn't know what happened behind the closed door or what the notary and Ruby talked about. She only escorted him to the door when he left the room and closed it behind him. All the household chores fell to Kirsty. After returning from college, she cooked, cleaned, went grocery shopping, and took the laundry to the cleaners. Aunt Ruby started to recover and could move around the apartment by herself, though she could only manage to get to the bathroom and back to her favorite chair. No matter how hard it was for Kirsty, she never complained. The most important thing for her now was for Aunt Ruby to be healthy. Gradually, Ruby's condition improved, and they even started to take short walks together in the alley. "You know, Kirsty, I always wanted children," Ruby said. "But it wasn't meant to be. My husband went through the war, rebuilding destroyed bridges. Sometimes he stood waist-deep in icy water in winter, and after that, he couldn't have children. She sat down on a bench to rest. He often offered to divorce me so I could marry someone else and finally become a mother," Aunt Ruby continued. "But how could I betray the man I loved? So we lived for each other. And in my old age, God sent me you." Gradually, everything was getting better, but Kirsty still couldn't leave Aunt Ruby alone for long. She even visited the village only for a couple of days instead of the whole vacation like before. Her parents didn't mind. Before Kirsty's thesis defense at college, Aunt Ruby was hospitalized. Her blood pressure spiked at night. All day, Kirsty was beside herself. She didn't even remember how she defended her thesis. All her thoughts were about her beloved aunt. As soon as it was over, she rushed to the hospital, where she was informed that Ruby had passed away early in the morning. Kirsty walked home without seeing the way. Passers-by shook their heads, thinking she was drunk. But she didn't care what they thought. She had lost someone very dear to her. After the funeral, while sorting through papers, Kirsty found a will stating that she inherited the apartment she had lived in with Aunt Ruby. So that's what she was discussing with the notary behind closed doors. When she met Giles, Kirsty couldn't understand what such a handsome guy, who attracted attention from all the girls, saw in her. But he courted her and soon proposed. There wasn't really a wedding. They just filed an application and signed the papers on the appointed day. "Kirsty, why should we throw a lavish celebration and waste money?" he said. "We'd better save up and buy a bigger, more spacious apartment." "Giles, but we already have a place to live." Kirsty was surprised. "Why do we need another one? I don't want to live in this old apartment. I'd rather buy a new one where I'm also the owner." "But you're already the owner," Kirsty laughed. "It's not the same," he replied. We'll sell this apartment, add some money, and buy a place together." Kesty just shrugged, not understanding why Giles was dissatisfied with their cozy apartment. In 5 years of their life together, Giles hadn't saved up for a new place. He wanted to buy an expensive, prestigious car or invest in Bitcoin. But for some reason, he was never in a hurry to invest in renovating their current apartment or buying new furniture. One morning, as soon as Kesty arrived at work and turned on her computer, she was summoned to the acting director, Ryan, who happened to be a friend of her husband, Giles. Kesty entered the office and paused at the door. Ryan was lounging in his chair, engrossed in a game on his laptop. Seeing her, he reluctantly paused his game and gestured for her to sit down. "You see, Kesty," he began, "due to operational needs, we have to eliminate your position as a marketing specialist. Of course, we are obliged to offer you another position within the company. But, unfortunately," Ryan spread his hands, "all positions are currently filled, and I think we can come to an agreement about your voluntary departure." He looked at Kesty arrogantly, knowing his superiority over her. "Giles asked you to fire me, didn't he?" she asked quietly. "Kesty." Ryan feigned indignation. "I make decisions here, and no one tells me what to do. This is done for staff optimization." "Really?" Kesty was surprised. "Weren't you the one who made advances on me at your country house 2 weeks ago and even promised me a department head position? And now I'm no longer needed because my husband asked you to do this?" "This conversation is over," Ryan interrupted. "You can get your severance pay from accounting, I've already arranged it." "What a scoundrel you are." Kesty glared at him and slammed the door behind her. As she walked home, tears choked her. Kesty had never wronged anyone, so why did others treat her so unfairly? Now she had to find a new job. She bought a newspaper listing various job vacancies, and the first ad that caught her eye read, "Urgently needed, nanny for 2 boys, ages 4 and 6. Teaching degree required." The ad included a phone number for further information. However, she didn't have a teaching degree or experience with children, so this job wasn't for her. After studying the newspaper, Kesty hadn't found any suitable job listings. She decided to reach out to her friend, Yasmin, who worked at a large construction company and might be able to help Kesty find a job. Kesty and Yasmin used to meet quite often. Yasmin would visit Kesty and Giles, and they had a warm relationship. Yasmin always told Kesty how lucky she was to have a husband who had already climbed the career ladder and become the head of the commercial department, thanks to Ryan's influence. Yasmin herself hadn't married yet, although she had many admirers. However, they preferred to have fun with her rather than propose, which saddened Yasmin as time passed. Lately, Yasmin had stopped visiting their home and rarely answered phone calls, citing a lack of time for idle chatter. Eventually, she stopped answering calls altogether. So Kesty decided to visit her in person to see if Yasmin could help her find a job. To avoid disturbing her friend on a weekday, Kesty decided to visit on a Saturday. She entered the building, went up to the right floor, and rang the doorbell. No one answered, so Kesty rang again. After a while, she heard the sound of the lock turning. Yasmin appeared at the door in a light lace negligee, revealing a small belly. "Kesty." Yasmin looked both surprised and frightened. "What are you doing here? Are we going to talk at the door?" Kesty asked. "Will you let me in?" "I'm sorry, but I can't invite you in," Yasmin said nervously, adjusting her negligee. "Darling, who is it?" came a familiar voice from the hallway. Giles, dressed in a terry robe, appeared in the corridor. Seeing his wife at the door, he stopped, looking back and forth between her and Yasmin in confusion. Kesty didn't say a word. She turned and quickly ran down the stairs. Tears choked her, but she considered it inappropriate to cry in public. Finding a secluded bench in a nearby park, she sat down and let her tears flow. It hurt to lose both her husband and her friend simultaneously, and it hurt even more that it all happened behind her back. She didn't notice an elderly woman with a colorful scarf sitting beside her and gently patting her head. "You know, dear," the old woman said in a calm voice, "no one is worth your tears, and the one who is won't make you cry." She handed Kirsty a candy, just like you would give to a little girl. Kirsty took the candy and smiled for the first time in a long while, then sadly said, "My husband left me for my friend." "It's certainly a sad situation," the woman sighed, "but you shouldn't grieve for too long. Don't be sad. You'll find happiness again." The woman got up from the bench and slowly walked down the alley. "Thank you," Kirsty called after her. The woman just waved as she walked away. On Monday, Kirsty filed for divorce from Giles. At home, she gathered all his belongings that he hadn't taken with him, packed them in bags, and placed them by the door to take them to her former friend's place. There was nothing left to tie her to Giles anymore. Time passed, and the money she had received when she was laid off was slowly dwindling, and Kirsty still hadn't found a new job. She had been called in for interviews, but nothing seemed to fit. Either the salary was too low or the job requirements were too high. She was starting to lose hope and bought another newspaper with job listings. Once again, on the front page, she saw an ad, "Urgently needed, nanny for boys aged 4 and 6. This time, a teaching degree was not required. Maybe I should call, Kirsty thought. I love children. In the village, I always babysat the neighbors' kids. And I don't have many options right now. After reading the ad again, Kirsty dialed the number listed. The phone was answered almost immediately. "Hello. How can I help you?" a pleasant female voice said. "Excuse me," Kirsty's voice trembled with nervousness. "I'm calling about the ad. Do you still need a nanny for your children?" "Yes, of course," the voice on the other end brightened. "Can you come by tomorrow at 12 p.m.? Andy will be home. Let me give you the address." Kirsty grabbed a pen and a piece of paper and wrote down the directions. Using the internet, she looked up the address and saw that it was outside the city. It wasn't too far, but she would need to leave early to arrive on time. Unfortunately, it started raining while she was on the bus, and Kirsty hadn't brought an umbrella. She was soaked by the time she walked from the bus stop to the house. She stood in front of the steel gate, hesitant to press the intercom button. "What are you standing here for?" Kirsty jumped at the sound of a stern male voice. She turned to see a large black car had pulled up, and a man was looking at her angrily from the slightly lowered window. I'm here for an interview," Kirsty stammered. She pulled a piece of paper with the address from her bag and showed it to the man for confirmation. "Get in," he gestured to the seat next to him. "No, that's okay," Kirsty declined. "I'm all wet from the rain." "Do I need to repeat myself?" the man said, irritated, as he opened the passenger door. Kirsty got into the car and pressed herself into the seat, afraid to say anything. The gates opened automatically, and the car drove onto the property, the tires softly crunching on the gravel. The man parked the car at the entrance of the house, turned off the engine, and helped Kirsty out, inviting her inside. She entered the large hall and froze in awe. She had never seen such a luxurious home. Two boys ran down the stairs and threw themselves into the man's arms. "Daddy's home," they shouted in unison. Seeing Kirsty, they fell silent and stared at her with interest. "Dad, who's that?" the older boy pointed at her. "I don't know," the father shrugged. "We'll find out soon." "Anna," he called out loudly. A woman in a strict dark blue dress and white apron entered the hall. "Anna," the man repeated, "please show our guest to the bathroom so she can freshen up, and then bring her to the dining room." The woman silently nodded and motioned for Kirsty to follow her. She led her to a luxurious bathroom with beautiful tiles, pristine fixtures, and bright lighting. Kirsty looked at herself in the mirror and was horrified. Staring back at her was a frightened girl with wet hair and clinging clothes. "You can use the hairdryer," Anna said sternly. "Here's a clean towel," she added, handing Kirsty a soft yellow towel she retrieved from a cabinet. Kesty dried her hair as best as she could, dried her clothes, and then returned to the large hall. Anna, still silent, guided her to a bright dining room where the familiar man sat reading a newspaper. "Have a seat," he said, pointing to a chair at the opposite end of the table. A place setting appeared in front of Kesty. "Thank you, but I came here for—" "We'll talk business after lunch," the man interrupted. He picked up his spoon and began eating his soup, continuing to read his newspaper. Kesty took her first spoonful and closed her eyes in delight. She had never tasted such delicious soup. She didn't realize how quickly she finished it. No sooner had she set her spoon down than another plate appeared before her, this time with mashed potatoes and roast beef. Kesty thought she couldn't possibly eat any more, but soon enough, she found the plate empty again. It had been a long time since she had eaten so much. Lately, she had been subsisting on sandwiches at home, lacking the motivation to cook for herself, and reluctant to spend her dwindling funds on a meal out. When coffee was served, the man leaned back in his chair and looked at her intently. "Now, let's get to know each other," he said, taking a sip of the aromatic coffee. "My name is Andy. I'm the owner of this house. And you are?" "Kesty," she replied, nervously fidgeting with the edge of the napkin on her lap. "I understand you're here in response to the ad and are interested in a nanny position for my children." "Yes," Kesty said quietly, lowering her eyes. "Then tell me about your experience," Andy requested. "Do you have any references?" Kesty looked up, fear evident in her eyes. "I don't have any references," she said, "and I don't have formal experience working with children. But please don't worry, I love kids and I think I can connect with them well. In the village where I lived, people often asked me to babysit their children. I did a great job with them, really," she finished, exhaling deeply. Andy smiled at Kesty. He liked her honesty and liveliness. Besides, she somewhat resembled his wife, who... He shook his head, pushing away the sad memories, and looked at Kesty again. "When can you start working?" he asked seriously. "You're hiring me?" Kesty was taken aback. "Yes," he replied shortly. "I'll hire you with a trial period of, let's say, 1 month. Do you agree?" "Of course," Kesty nodded eagerly. "You didn't even ask about the working conditions," Andy said, surprised. "Well, I hope they'll be good," Kesty said, feeling a bit embarrassed. "All right then," Andy said, crossing his legs. "You'll live here and be with my sons around the clock. Saturdays and Sundays will be your days off, and you're free to do as you please. I'll pay you." He named a sum that was twice her salary at her last job. "Do you agree to these terms?" "Yes, I agree," Kesty responded. "By the way, are you married?" Andy asked. "No," Kesty firmly erased her husband from her life. "Do you have any other questions for me?" Andy looked at his watch. "I have one question. Why did the first ad in the newspaper require a teaching degree, but the second one didn't?" Kesty asked. "My children need a nanny with an open heart and a kind soul, someone with whom they can feel free and comfortable, not a strict disciplinarian with a teaching degree who they would be afraid to express their opinions to. Unfortunately, that's the type of person we kept getting, and I had to let them go after a while," Andy explained, checking his watch again. "Any other questions?" "No," Kesty shook her head. "Good, then let's go. I'll drive you to the city." After dropping Kesty off on the desired street, Andy reminded her that his driver would pick her up at 9 a.m. the next day to bring her to the cottage, giving her time to pack her belongings. The next morning, exactly at 9 o'clock, the doorbell rang. A tall man in a dark shirt stood at the door. "Percy," he introduced himself. "Andy said I should bring you to his home." Kesty double-checked to make sure everything was turned off and locked in her apartment, then grabbed her small suitcase and headed for the door. Percy took her suitcase and started down the stairs, and after locking the door, Kesty followed him. Settling into the car, she began to ask Percy about her new boss, but he remained silent, not answering any of her questions. So, Kesty fell silent too and watched the passing scenery through the window. When they arrived at the cottage, Percy carried her things into the hall and left. "Good day." Anna greeted her. "Come, I'll show you the room where you'll be staying," she said, heading towards the stairs. Kesty picked up her suitcase and followed Anna upstairs. Anna opened the door to one of the rooms and invited Kesty inside. The room was brightly lit by the sun, causing Kesty to squint. Anna walked over to the window and lowered the blinds, making the room much darker. "Make yourself comfortable, then come downstairs," Anna said before leaving the room and closing the door behind her. Kesty looked around. The room was small but very cozy. Near the door stood a light-colored wardrobe with large mirrors. Against one wall was a bed with a fluffy coverlet. Opposite the bed was a deep armchair next to a floor lamp. In the corner, on a light-colored nightstand, was a plasma TV, and a soft rug lay on the floor. She walked to the window and lifted the blinds slightly. The view outside was beautiful, a small forest and a pond where fishermen were sitting. Kesty looked around the room once more and felt very pleased. After unpacking her things and putting them in the wardrobe, she went downstairs. Anna met her and led her to the dining room. "Andy went to work and asked me to get you acquainted with your duties," Anna said, pouring coffee. "As you already know, the master has two sons, Tim and Tom. Their mother passed away 2 years ago. But this is not discussed in our house." She gave Kesty a stern look. Kesty nodded, understanding the subtle hint not to ask unnecessary questions. "Your duties are listed here." Anna handed Kesty a piece of paper which she began to study carefully. "Andy wants his children to be raised with love and affection. If any strictness is needed, he will handle it himself. Do you understand? Can I meet the children?" Kesty asked. "Of course," Anna nodded. "Let's go to the nursery." They went back upstairs and entered the room next to Kesty's. "Tim, Tom." Anna gently called to the boys, who were sitting at a small table drawing. "This is your new nanny, Kesty." Kesty walked over to the younger boy, crouched down, and looked at his drawing. "What a beautiful star you're drawing." The boy's eyes lit up with joy. "Really? You like it? But it's not a star, it's my mom." Kesty looked at the child in surprise. "Yes, it's my mom," he repeated. "Dad said she became a magical star. You can't see her during the day because she's busy, but at night she shines brightly, so my brother," he nodded at Tim, "and I aren't afraid of the dark." Tears welled up in Kesty's eyes. She patted the boy's head, kissed the top of his head, and hugged him. After wiping away her tears, she stood up and walked over to the older boy. He was drawing an ambulance and a figure standing next to it holding a small bag with a red cross. "What are you drawing?" Kesty asked. "This is a doctor who came to help someone. When I grow up, I want to be a doctor and help people so they never get sick and become stars like our mom." Looking at the drawings, Kesty realized that the children were still deeply struggling with the loss of their mother. She vowed to herself that she would do everything possible to help the boys open up and become carefree and joyful once again. "Have you had breakfast yet?" she asked. The brothers nodded in response. "Well then, how about we go for a walk?" she suggested. "You can show me what's interesting in your yard since I don't know anything about it." "Hooray! A walk!" the children shouted with excitement, jumping up from their seats and starting to get dressed. Kesty was impressed by how independent the boys were. They dressed themselves without any help, and the older one even assisted the younger one. Noticing Kesty's surprised look, Tim said, "Mom always told us that we're brothers and should always help each other." Kesty admired the wisdom of the unknown woman and how well she had raised her sons. They all went outside, and the children immediately suggested that Kesty visit the playground that their dad had built for them. They went around to the back of the house, and Kesty saw a well-equipped playground with a slide, swings, a sandbox, and various other play structures. Tom immediately climbed the slide and slid down, while Tim sat on the swing and asked Kesty to push him. Then they ran around the playground, laughing joyfully. Caught up in the game, Kesty didn't notice Andy standing at the corner of the house, watching them. Tim was the first to spot him and waved. "Dad, come join us." Andy thought for a moment, then took off his jacket, hanging it on a tree branch, rolled up his shirt sleeves, and joined the fun. He started running around the playground, trying to catch his sons, who skillfully dodged him. Kesty found it amusing to see the serious man in an expensive suit running around like a child, clearly enjoying himself. "Okay, okay. You've caught your father," the man said, raising his hands in surrender. "My employees would have a good laugh if they saw me now," he laughed. Then he turned to Kesty, who was trying to hide her smile. "I see you've already bonded with my little rascals," he said, taking his jacket from the branch and draping it over his arm. "But this is just the beginning," Kesty shrugged. "I hope everything continues to go well." At first, Kesty was very tired because she spent almost the entire day attending to the children, who demanded constant attention. An interesting incident occurred just 2 days after she started her job. During lunch, while she was putting the boys to sleep and reading them a story from a chair, she herself fell asleep without realizing it. She woke up to someone gently covering her with a blanket. Opening her eyes, Kesty saw Tim draping a blanket over her, while Tom sat quietly on a chair, trying not to make a sound, drawing in his sketchbook. Kesty was so touched that tears involuntarily rolled down her cheeks. She grew more and more attached to the children, and when she went home for the weekend, she began to miss them already. Arriving at her house, Kesty checked her mailbox and found a notice stating that she needed to appear in court in a week for the dissolution of her marriage with Giles. A similar notice was addressed to Giles. The girl initially wanted to deliver the notice herself and drop it into the mailbox of her former friend, with whom Giles was now living. But then she decided to put it in an envelope and send it to her address. The reminder of Giles stirred up feelings of resentment and anger in Kesty for how he had treated her so cruelly. To distract herself from these sad thoughts, she began cleaning the apartment. As she was finishing mopping the floors, she heard a knock at the door. Smoothing her disheveled hair, Kesty opened it and saw Giles on the threshold, impatiently shifting from foot to foot. "Finally, I caught you," he said irritably, stepping into the apartment. "I've come by several times, but you weren't home. What do you want?" Kesty asked wearily. "I want to pick up my things, unless you've thrown them away." "What did you think?" he smirked. "All your stuff is right there." Kesty nodded toward the bag still in the hallway. "Take it and leave." "I'm busy." "Where are you rushing off to?" "Expecting company?" he asked, glaring at his ex-wife. "I see you're not too broken up about me leaving." "There's nothing to be upset about," Kesty shrugged. "You left, and that's that." In reality, maintaining this calm facade was difficult for her. Inside, she was seething with anger and hatred, but she didn't want to give Giles the satisfaction of seeing her upset. "Just so you know," Giles sneered, "I never loved you. I married you only for the apartment. Have you seen yourself in the mirror? Yasmin is a queen compared to you, and her apartment is modern, not old like yours. Plus, she's about to give me a son, unlike you." Kesty listened silently as Giles spoke, trembling with a barely controlled rage. She turned and went into another room. When she returned, she handed him the court notice. He read it carefully and exclaimed, "Well, good. Now I can definitely marry Yasmin. She's been pushing me to do it so the child is born in wedlock, and now nothing will tie me to you." He grabbed his bags and left, slamming the door behind him. Kesty remained in the hallway, sitting down on a nearby stool, covering her face with her hands, and sobbing bitterly. As it grew dark outside, Kesty realized she couldn't stay alone in the apartment. She changed clothes, called a taxi, and headed to the cottage. There, she wouldn't be alone. She would be with her beloved boys, who would distract her from her dark thoughts. Anna was surprised by her arrival but, seeing the girl's distressed face, refrained from asking any questions. However, Tim and Tom were thrilled that their nanny had returned. They jumped around her, excitedly sharing what they had done all day. "Alright, guys, how about we head to the bathroom?" Kirsty suggested. The brothers eagerly agreed, as every bath time turned into an exciting game for them. Their nanny allowed them to bring toys, and they all embarked on a journey through the foamy waves together. Kirsty loved spending time with the children. She had accepted the fact that she would never have children of her own and poured all her love and care into raising these boys, who had lost their mother so early. She grew more and more attached to them, even though she knew that one day Tim and Tom would grow up and no longer need her. Shortly before Christmas, Andy invited Kirsty to his office. "Kirsty, I have a small request for you," he began, pausing briefly. "I have to go away for the Christmas holidays. Friends have invited me to Sweden, and I couldn't refuse because there will be people there who could be beneficial to my business. Could you stay with the children during this time? I understand that you'll have to go without your days off, but I'll compensate you double." "Of course, Andy," she agreed immediately. "It's just..." She hesitated, unsure how to phrase her request. "Just what?" he frowned. "I'd like to visit my parents in the village before you leave, to bring them gifts and wish them well. Can I ask for an extra day off? Just one day, so I can leave on Friday and be back by Sunday." Andy sighed in relief and laughed. "Is that all? I'll give you 2 extra days off, so you can head to your parents on Thursday. Also, I'll have Anna prepare some gifts for your parents from me personally." On Thursday morning, the driver Percy took her to the bus station. Kirsty boarded the bus, laden with bags of gifts, and set off for her hometown. Andy had offered to have Percy drive her straight to her parents' house, but Kirsty had refused. She didn't want to attract any attention in the village. If she arrived in an expensive car, it would immediately spark gossip. Opening the gate, Kirsty walked into the yard and immediately saw her father clearing snow near the porch. Seeing his daughter, he dropped the shovel and hurried to her. "Why didn't you tell us you were coming? We were only expecting you for Christmas." "Well, here I am, a bit early," she replied cheerfully. "Is Mom home?" Her mother had already rushed out onto the porch, waving her arms in joy at the unexpected arrival of her beloved daughter. "Mom!" Kirsty ran to her. "I missed you so much. Come inside, dear, you'll catch a cold," Vivian said tenderly, hugging Kirsty. Kirsty picked up the bags and followed her mother into the house. She paused on the threshold, taking a deep breath of the familiar scent of home. The air was filled with the aroma of dried herbs, her father's tobacco, and fresh baking. "I've made some pancakes," her mother exclaimed joyfully. "Come on, take off your coat and sit at the table." She bustled around the kitchen. "We should send your father to the forest to cut down a Christmas tree," she suggested. "We haven't had a tree at home for a long time. We also need to bring the ornaments from the attic." "Mom," Kirsty said apologetically, glancing at her mother. "I won't be able to stay for Christmas." "What? Why not?" "You see, Andy asked me to look after the children during the Christmas holidays while he's away." "Do you really want to spend Christmas with someone else's children?" her mother sighed. "You should be thinking about having your own by now." "Mom!" Kirsty exclaimed. "You know I can't have children." "Who told you that?" her mother retorted angrily. "Even the doctors say you're perfectly healthy." "Giles is about to have a baby," Kirsty said, lowering her head to hide her tears. "So it must be my fault." "Oh, my dear," Vivian said. "I have a feeling things aren't going well with him and Yasmin. Have you heard anything from him? He called me about a month ago. He bragged about getting married again and how happy he is with his beautiful new wife." "That scoundrel." Vivian slapped the table with her hand. "He called you just to gloat." "Forget about him, Mom." "I don't even want to think about him," Kirsty replied. "Let's go," and I'll show you the gifts I brought for you and Dad." Over the next 2 days, Kesti helped her mother with the housework. She cleared snow in the yard with her father and even managed to visit the local cafe, where she met with former classmates who had stayed in the village after school. On Sunday, her parents saw her off at the bus stop. They packed various homemade treats for Kesti to share with Andy and the children. When she arrived at the city bus station, Kesti struggled to pull the heavy bags off the bus. She had to take a taxi to get to the cottage. Dragging the heavy bags into the house, she paused to catch her breath. "Kesti." Anna came out to meet her. "Why are you carrying such heavy things?" "My parents sent some goodies for everyone," Kesti said with a smile. "Now I don't know what to do with them." "I doubt anyone would want to eat these country treats," she said innocently. "What do you mean, you don't know what to do with them?" Andy's loud voice boomed. "Come on, put everything on the table, and let's try these treats." Kesti began unpacking the bags, placing jars of apple and blackberry jams, cinnamon rolls, and fresh vegetables on the table. This smells delicious," Andy said. "The last time I had anything like this was at my grandmother's house in the village." "You were in a village?" Kesti asked, surprised. "Of course," Andy laughed. "It was the happiest time of my childhood. My grandmother, on my father's side, lived there, and he used to take me to her for the summer holidays. She baked my favorite rolls. Just like the ones your mother sent." Kesti looked at Andy with wide eyes. She couldn't imagine that this handsome man longed for country food and reminisced about his childhood spent with his grandmother. "Please send my thanks to your parents," he said. "Everything is delicious. You know, no fancy restaurant food can replace the home-cooked meals made with love." For Christmas, a real fluffy tree was set up in the hall of the house. Kesti and the children spent the entire morning decorating it, thoroughly enjoying themselves. When they finished, they stepped back to admire it, knowing it would light up with bright lights for them in the evening. Then Kesti and the boys went outside to build snowmen, running around in the snow and having snowball fights. Happy and tired, they returned home. Anna threw up her hands when she saw the children and their nanny at the door, their clothes covered in snow from head to toe. Kesti just shrugged apologetically and promised to mop up the wet puddles that had already formed under their feet. After feeding the boys lunch, Kesti put them down for a nap and went downstairs to help prepare the Christmas dinner. Besides the boys, the dinner guests included Kesti, Anna, and Percy. Kesti had prepared gifts for everyone. For Tim, she had a children's medical encyclopedia with bright illustrations. For Tom, a drawing set. For Anna, she bought soft house slippers, and for Percy, a beautiful mug with his name on it. She wrapped all the presents beautifully and hid them under the tree, where they awaited their moment. In the evening, everyone gathered around the table. The atmosphere was very festive. Tim and Tom, who were initially a bit sad that their father wouldn't be with them, were soon entertained by Percy's captivating Christmas stories, making them laugh along with the adults. After dinner, everyone moved to the hall, lit up the Christmas tree, and started exchanging gifts. Tom gave Kesti a drawing he had made himself. It depicted a girl holding hands with two boys, and underneath it was the caption, "Tom, Kesti, Tim." Kesti smiled. The caption was obviously written by Tim, with whom she had been practicing writing. Tim gave her a Christmas tree-shaped card he had made, signed with "Merry Christmas." From Anna, she received a beautiful shawl that Anna had knitted especially for her. And Percy, blushing, handed her a large, beautiful box of chocolates, clearly showing his fondness for her. "Make a wish," Anna exclaimed excitedly. Kesti closed her eyes and wished that she, too, would one day have two wonderful sons like Tom and Tim, and hopefully a daughter as well. "Merry Christmas," everyone shouted, and they all started hugging each other. After the Christmas holidays, when Andy returned from his trip, Kesti went home for the weekend. She entered her empty apartment and immediately turned on the TV to fill the silence. With the TV as background noise, she drifted off to sleep and woke up to a sudden doorbell ring. Kesti shook her head, thinking she had dreamed it, but the doorbell rang again. "Who is it?" she asked cautiously. "Kesti, open up, it's Giles." She opened the door and saw her ex-husband standing there with a suitcase in his hand. "May I come in?" he asked quietly. Kesti stepped aside, letting him into the hallway. He took off his coat and entered the room. "It's so nice here," he sighed. Kesti looked at her ex-husband in surprise. "Since when did you start liking my apartment? You never did before." "Kesti, I was wrong," he said, lowering his eyes. "What happened to make you change your mind?" she asked. "I left Yasmin." "Really?" Kesti smirked. "What did she do to displease you? You used to boast that she was the best thing in the world." "She deceived me," Giles said, sitting in a chair. "Can you believe it, the child she's carrying isn't mine. And how did you find that out?" 2 days ago, I came home early from work to surprise my wife. I entered the apartment quietly and overheard her talking to a friend. How do I explain that the baby will be premature when it's actually due on time? When I walked into the room, she quickly ended the conversation and started smiling at me sweetly. "Who's the father of this baby?" I asked her sternly. "Giles, what kind of question is that?" she retorted. "Of course, you're the father of our future child. Don't take me for a fool," I shouted. "I'm asking again, who's the father of your child?" "Does it matter who the father is?" she said calmly. "He'll be ours anyway, right, darling?" "No way!" I exclaimed. "I don't need someone else's child." I packed my things and left. "That's what happened, Kesti," he finished his story. "So what are you planning to do now?" Kesti asked. "What?" "I'm filing for divorce." "Haven't you had enough divorces recently?" she smirked. "What can I do?" Giles shrugged. Who could have guessed she'd turn out to be such an unpleasant person? "But now I have nowhere to live," he looked at his ex-wife guiltily. "Remember how good it was when we were together, Kesti." "What are you implying?" "Maybe you could let me stay here until I find an apartment." "You always said my apartment was a dump," she smirked. "Your apartment is lovely and very cozy," her ex-husband exclaimed. "No, Giles, you can't stay here," Kesti said firmly. "You have a wife, the smart and beautiful woman you praised so much. Go to her, your problems don't concern me." Giles stood up from the chair, shoulders slumped, and walked to the hallway. "I've wronged you greatly," he said, holding the door handle. "Please forgive me." "I forgive you," Kesti replied curtly and closed the door behind him. She returned to the room, walked to the window, and moved the curtain aside. Watching Giles leave, she felt a twinge of pity for her ex-husband. But he got what he deserved. Sure, she could have let Giles stay in her apartment, it was empty anyway. But then it would be hard to make him leave. So, he should deal with his problems on his own. And Yasmin, well, she had cleverly deceived another woman's husband. But secrets always come out eventually. How Yasmin would handle the situation now was none of Kesti's concern. She went to the kitchen, boiled the kettle, and poured herself a cup of coffee. Sipping the fragrant drink, she thought about how she would see her boys again tomorrow, Tim and Tom, to whom she had already become deeply attached. One day, Andy, as usual, came home for lunch. Going up to his office, he walked to the window and drew back the curtain because it seemed too dark in the room. He saw his sons playing in the yard with their nanny, Kesti. Andy leaned on the windowsill, captivated by the scene unfolding before him. The boys were running around in the snow, and Kesti was trying to catch them. Then they all fell into a snowdrift and laughed heartily. Andy gazed at Kesti. She really did resemble his wife. He glanced at the framed photo on his desk. A young, beautiful woman with an open smile and sparkling eyes looked back at him. He sighed heavily. He still blamed himself for listening to his wife and not fighting harder to save her by all possible means. He stared into the eyes of his beloved, recalling the time when they were happy and it seemed like they had a long and joyous life ahead of them. Nancy had loved life so much, she genuinely rejoiced and deeply loved her husband and sons, with whom she had so little time on this earth. Andy looked out the window again. Nanny Kesty seemed as kind and cheerful as his wife had been. And they did resemble each other. He turned his gaze to his sons. How wonderful that they had become happy and carefree again, no longer crying and calling for their mother in the evenings. And all this had happened thanks to the delicate Kesty, who had surrounded them with the care and attention they had lacked. He had no doubt now that he had made the right choice in hiring Kesty as their nanny. Initially, he hadn't expected her to be such a great nanny since she had no experience with children. But Kesty had genuinely bonded with his sons and spent as much time with them as possible. And the boys simply adored their nanny. In the spring, an unfortunate incident occurred. Anna had a bad fall and broke her leg. She spent 2 weeks in the hospital and then returned home, continuing to stay on bed rest. Kesty often visited her room to offer some support. "Look, Kesty," Anna lamented, "I could do everything around the house with my eyes, but in reality, I can't even get up." "It's okay, Anna," Kesty reassured her, "soon they'll remove the cast, and you'll be running around better than before." "I hope so," Anna replied, "you have a kind heart, Kesty. It was obvious from the start. You're so good with the children. Our Nancy would have been pleased." Tears welled up in Anna's eyes. "Anna, don't be upset," Kesty said, gently patting her hand, "just rest for now. I'll come back in the evening. I'll put the boys to bed and then visit you again. Deal?" Anna nodded and closed her eyes. In the evening, as promised, Kesty quietly knocked on Anna's door. "Come in," Anna's voice called out. Kesty entered the room, lit only by the night light on the bedside table. "Sit with me for a while, Kesty," Anna requested. Kesty sat on the chair next to the bed. "How are the boys? Were they well behaved today?" Anna asked. "Oh, absolutely," Kesty laughed, "they're very polite and well behaved. Did you know I'm their grandmother?" "Well, great-aunt, actually." "Really?" Kesty exclaimed, "I didn't know that." "Their mother Nancy is my niece," Anna settled more comfortably on the bed. "Her mother died early when Nancy was just 10 years old. From that moment, I raised Nancy as my own daughter. After finishing school, she went to college to become a designer. That's where she met her future husband, Andy, who was studying in a different department. They started dating and got married a year later. We had a hard time at first. I worked as a cook in a cafeteria with a small salary. Andy took evening jobs as a loader or janitor, and Nancy wrote term papers and theses for other students for money. Even though we lived in poverty, we were very close. After college, Andy got a job at a construction firm. He started as an engineer, and thanks to his hard work and professionalism, quickly climbed the career ladder, eventually becoming the deputy general manager and later opening his own construction company. Nancy was praised for her excellent taste and good projects even in college, so by the time she was in her final year, she already had several commissions which she handled successfully, and she had a job offer. But she preferred to work at the same firm where her husband was employed. Everything was going well for them, except they couldn't have children. The doctors didn't know why, as both were perfectly healthy. They had almost given up and decided to adopt a child from an orphanage. But before taking that important step, they decided to go on a cruise to think it over carefully. After returning, they started visiting orphanages to find a child to adopt, but each time they came back home disappointed. "Anna," Nancy used to say to me, "all the children are very nice and sweet, but for some reason, my heart is silent. I want to choose my child with my heart, not just my mind." Then, one day, Nancy discovered she was pregnant. Actually, she felt it with her heart first. I still remember how she told me. "Anna, I feel like something is happening to me. I don't know what it is yet, but I feel so happy inside. She bought a pregnancy test and saw 2 lines on it. Andy and Nancy were overjoyed. Andy immediately suggested they start building a country house, and Nancy supported the idea and took on the project herself. Her pregnancy went very smoothly. Nancy spent a lot of time outdoors, overseeing the construction of their home. Tim was born on the expected date, and 6 months later, they moved into the house, taking me with them. Honestly, I didn't want to move with them. They had their own family. But Nancy cried when she heard my refusal. "Anna, I won't move without you either. I don't want to leave you alone. Or are you tired of us?" "Oh, you silly girl." I stroked Nancy's head, "I'd be very sad without you. I just didn't want to intrude. How can our beloved mother be a bother? Come on, pack up, and I'll help you." Nancy was very kind and empathetic. Andy always looked at her with loving eyes, constantly admiring his wife. She created a cozy atmosphere in the house with her jokes. Nancy managed to take care of the baby, cook, and clean, never letting Andy hire a housekeeper. Of course, I helped her, but Nancy tried to shield me from chores. After some time, Nancy got pregnant again. But this pregnancy was difficult. Her legs swelled badly, and she suffered from constant headaches. Nancy spent a long time in the hospital. Tom was born weak, and he wasn't discharged from the neonatal pathology unit for about a month. Fortunately, nothing serious was found, and we brought him home soon. But Nancy's condition kept worsening. She never complained, not wanting to upset us. But I noticed she often took some pills to relieve her headaches. Andy and I didn't suspect anything for a long time until one day Nancy fainted. Then she fainted again. That's when Andy took her to the hospital for an examination, where it was revealed Nancy had brain cancer. I was terrified because her mother also died of brain cancer. Nancy was immediately put on chemotherapy, but it didn't help much. Nancy then refused any further treatment, saying it was better to spend whatever time she had left at home with her children. We begged her to continue treatment, and Andy even arranged for a clinic on the other side of the country to take her, but she was adamant and refused to go. She spent all her time with her sons, trying to enjoy every minute with them. Even when she couldn't walk anymore and could only lie in bed, she asked them to sit with her, holding her son's hands. Anna took a breath and sipped some water from her cup. Her hands were trembling, and Kesti could see how hard it was for her to tell this story. But she couldn't stop her because she knew Anna needed to talk about it. After Nancy's death, Anna continued, Andy withdrew into himself and stopped paying attention to anything. He told me several times that he blamed himself for not insisting that his wife continue her treatment, and therefore he felt responsible for her death. After work, he would lock himself in his study and not let anyone in. One day, I saw the door slightly open and peeked inside. Andy was asleep on the couch, clutching a photo of Nancy, with an empty brandy bottle on the table. At that moment, I felt so sorry for him, but there was nothing I could do to help. It was the children who brought Andy back to life. One day, he went into their room and saw Tim and Tom sitting there with frightened eyes, huddled close together. He picked them up and held them close. It was then that he realized he had to keep going for their sake, to raise them into good men, just as Nancy had dreamed. At first, he didn't want to hire a nanny, thinking that he and I could manage on our own. But he started traveling for work frequently, and my health began to decline. The boys were growing up and needed more attention. But we had no luck with nannies until you came along, Kesti. One was a drill sergeant in a skirt, and another needed a nanny herself. But you, Kesti, you have a genuine connection with the children, and they adore you. The girl silently nodded, unable to say a word, her eyes filled with tears. She felt deep sorrow for everyone, Nancy, whom she had never met but who had died so young, Andy, who had lost his beloved wife, the boys, who were left without a mother, and Anna, who had essentially lost her daughter. I've tired you out, Anna said apologetically, looking at the girl. No, not at all. Kesti shook her head. I knew the boy's mother had died, but I didn't realize how much pain she had endured. She sighed. The boys still miss her so much. Tom even draws his mother as a star shining from the sky. Yes, we decided not to hide the truth from them. Of course, we didn't tell them right away. We noticed that Tim kept running to the front door, waiting for his mom to walk through it. When he got tired, he would crouch down and keep waiting, sometimes even falling asleep there. Andy decided it wasn't right for Tim to suffer in constant anticipation, so he talked to him. He told him that their mom wasn't coming back because she had gone to the sky and become a bright, beautiful star that would always shine for her beloved sons. Now, when they see the starry sky, they wave and send air kisses, knowing that their mom sees them. In early May, Andy came home looking very upset. He didn't pick up his sons as usual, just mumbled "hi" and went into his study, closing the door behind him. Kesti and Anna exchanged worried glances and tried to distract the boys, who were on the verge of tears because their dad hadn't paid attention to them. That evening, as she was putting the boys to bed, Kesti heard footsteps behind the door, which slowly opened, and Andy walked in. "Who wants a bedtime story from Daddy tonight?" he asked, looking at his sons lovingly. Me, the boys shouted, jumping on the bed. "All right then, get comfortable, close your eyes, and listen." Andy took the first children's book he found on the shelf. "Kesti, please come down to the dining room in 15 minutes. I need to talk to you and Anna," he said. Kesti nodded and left the nursery. In her bedroom, she sat on the bed, her hands trembling. Is he going to fire me? Kesti wondered. Everything seemed fine, no one complained about me. She kept looking at the clock, and those 15 minutes felt like an eternity. Hearing the adjacent door quietly open, Kesti got up from the bed and, leaving her bedroom, went downstairs. In the dining room, Anna was already there, also uncertain about why Andy had called them. He sat at the head of the table and looked intently at the women. "I don't want to alarm you, but I'm facing some issues at work. I hope it won't lead to anything serious, but I'd like you and the children to leave this house for a while." Anna and Kesti were stunned, unable to utter a word in response. "I'm planning to send you abroad," Andy continued. "How do you feel about that?" He waited for a response from Kesti and Anna. "Do we really need to go that far?" Kesti asked cautiously. "Do you have other suggestions?" Andy looked at her in surprise. "Yes," Kesti replied firmly. "We could go to my parents' village. The boys would benefit from the fresh air there. Is that feasible?" Andy asked. "Won't your parents mind?" "Oh, not at all," Kesti exclaimed. "Mom and Dad will be thrilled. They love the children very much. And you, Anna, what do you think?" Andy turned to her. "I agree with Kesti. They'll be better off in the village. Besides, Andy, you can always visit them." "What do you mean, they'll be better off?" Andy didn't understand. "It means I'm not leaving. I'll stay here with you," Anna said firmly. "But Anna..." Andy began to protest. "No, dear," she interrupted. "I won't leave you alone. I have nothing to fear now, so I'll stay by your side." Andy looked at the women gratefully. "Thank you, my dear ones, for your support. Don't worry, I believe everything will be resolved soon. I'm just being cautious to protect my loved ones. Business can be very ruthless. Everyone wants a piece of it." A few days later, Percy took Kesti and the children to the village. The car stopped in front of Kesti's parents' house. Tim and Tom got out of the car and hesitated in front of the gate. Hearing the car, Vivian and Tom, Kesti's parents, came out onto the porch. Kesti had already informed them of the arrival. "Well, let's get acquainted," Tom extended his hand to the boys. "I'm Grandpa Tom. And what are your names?" "And I'm Tom too," replied the younger brother, offering his small hand. "Oh, we have the same name," the man exclaimed. "And what's your name?" he asked the older brother. "Tim," the boy said shyly, looking at the unfamiliar man. "Well, now we're introduced." Tom smiled. "And this is Vivian," he said, pointing to his wife standing next to him. "Come on in. You must be tired from the journey," Vivian said. The boys looked questioningly at Kirsty, but she smiled and waved them on. Go on, go on." Then they took Vivian by the hand from both sides, and she led them into the house. Percy helped carry Kirsty's belongings inside and, after declining tea, drove back to the city. The boys explored the house with curiosity, particularly fascinated by the fireplace in the living room. When Vivian lit a fire in it, they watched mesmerized, observing the flames and the crackling of the logs. "Now I'm going to bake some delicious rolls to treat our little guests," Vivian said, looking at the boys with affection. After a hearty lunch, Tim and Tom fell asleep in the bed in what used to be Kirsty's room, and Kirsty began helping her mother with the dishes. "What wonderful children," Vivian said quietly. "It's so sad they're orphans." "Mom," Kirsty reproached her mother. "They're not orphans." "What are you saying?" "They have a father." "Oh, daughter," the woman sighed. "No one can replace their real mother. Not even the most wonderful father." "Well, what can we do?" Kirsty shrugged. "We can't bring their mother back. The most important thing now is to surround them with care and affection." "You'd make a wonderful mother," Vivian said lovingly, looking at her daughter. "I can see how well you treat them. And they're so drawn to you." "Mom, don't start," Kirsty grimaced. "It seems I'm not destined to be a mother. For now, I'll raise other people's children." "By the way," her mother said, "you mentioned that Giles isn't the father of Yasmin's child." "Yes, that's right. The real father abandoned her when he found out she was pregnant. It was too late for an abortion, so she seduced Giles and married him. She knew Giles wanted an heir. I was foolish to share my problem with her. It turns out she decided to build her happiness on my misfortune." Kirsty put the dishes away and hung up a towel. "Do they still live together?" her mother asked, removing her apron. "No, Giles left her when he found out about the deception. He started drinking, which led to his demotion. My former friend was very clever. Since Giles didn't file for divorce in time, she registered the newborn child as his, so if he does divorce her, he'll be obligated to pay child support." "Serves him right," Vivian said angrily. "I don't feel sorry for him at all. He even came to see me once," Kirsty said. "But I wasn't home. He rang the doorbell for a long time, then started banging loudly and calling my name. A neighbor looked out and threatened to call the police if he didn't leave immediately. Giles asked her about me, and the neighbor told him I no longer lived there. She said I had married and moved in with my husband. He then sat on the step and cried. The neighbor told me he was drunk. The boys loved living in the village. The weather was lovely, and everything around was blooming. Tim and Tom followed Grandpa Tom around, asking him countless questions to which he answered, speaking to them like adults. Vivian, on the other hand, treated them as if they were little, constantly hugging and kissing them on the top of their heads. "Oh, Vivian," they would say, wriggling free from her embraces. "We're big now, stop kissing us." Vivian would deliberately frown, then after a while, pull the boys back into her arms. Kirsty watched all this with a sad smile. She understood that her parents were eager to dote on their grandchildren. They treated these almost strangers with such warmth and care. Maybe one day she would have children of her own. It turned out Yasmin's baby wasn't Giles's. But she has no one to father her children. No husband, and none in sight. She can't, like her former friend, easily meet men and break up families. Tom, Kirsty's father, was working on repairing the barn, while Kirsty and her mother were busy in the garden when they heard a car pull up to their house. Dad is here," the boys shouted, rushing towards the tall man who was walking through the gate. He lifted them up and showered them with kisses. "My, how much you've grown. And you're heavy now, too." Andy looked at his sons with love as he set them down on the ground. "Grandpa." Tim waved to Tom. "Come here. Our dad has arrived." "Grandpa?" Andy looked surprised. "Yes, Grandpa Tom and Grandma Vivian," the children said, taking their father by the hand. "Come on. We'll introduce you to them." "Hello, Andy." Kirsty greeted him, dressed in a simple dress. "Meet my parents, Tom and Vivian," she said. Andy shook Tom's hand and nodded to Vivian. "I still remember the rolls you sent us before Christmas. So, what are we standing around for?" Vivian said. "Come inside. I baked a pie this morning and will put the kettle on." "No, thank you," Andy shook his head. "I came to pick up the boys and their nanny," he glanced at Kirsty, "to take them home." "Oh, why so soon?" Vivian asked. "The boys are having so much fun here." "Vivian," her husband scolded her. "It's not for us to decide," he said, looking sadly at the children. "Dad, I don't want to leave," Tom cried. "I really like it here. Grandpa Tom and Grandma Vivian are so kind." "I don't want to leave either," Tim said. "We were going fishing with Grandpa Tom tomorrow." Andy looked at his sons in confusion. "Well, how can this be? I came all this way for you." The boys were crying, clinging to Vivian's dress. Kirsty was also at a loss in this situation. "Andy, tomorrow's Saturday, so you have the day off." Kirsty's father took charge. "Yes," Andy answered uncertainly. "Great. You can rest here for the day, we'll go fishing tomorrow morning, have dinner in the evening, and we'll see you off on Sunday." "Agreed?" Everyone looked at Andy expectantly. "Well, what can I do?" he laughed. "You've convinced me." Everyone perked up immediately. The happy boys bounced around their father. Kirsty and her mother hurried inside to set the table, while Tom sat on a bench outside and lit a cigarette. Andy retrieved a travel bag from the car trunk, which he always carried with him, and headed into the house to change. After a hearty lunch, Kirsty's father, Tom, and Andy went outside and sat on a bench. "It's nice here," Andy looked around. "Quiet, peaceful, no hustle and bustle." "Of course it's nice," Tom said, lighting a cigarette. "You city folks probably think everything just happens effortlessly. The garden grows by itself, the berries ripen on the bushes on their own. But you don't realize how much work goes into it." "You're wrong, Tom," Andy shook his head. "When I was a child, I used to visit my grandmother in the village during the holidays and saw that she was never idle. In the morning, I'd wake up to find a plate of pancakes on the table and fresh milk waiting for me. At night, as I was falling asleep, I'd see her mending my clothes. She'd be working in the garden, cooking lunch, or cleaning the chicken coop. She always had important tasks. I don't understand how she managed it all, and where she found the strength. And her voice. Sometimes her friends would come over, and they'd sing songs. I was foolish not to appreciate the beautiful, soulful songs they sang. I'd cover my ears to block out the sound, or even run outside." Andy fell silent, gazing into the distance. Tom also remained quiet, lighting another cigarette. "I noticed when I drove up to your house that you were doing some repairs," Andy said, turning his head to look at the yard. "Yes, the barn was a bit wobbly. And the roof had sprung a leak. I store firewood there, so I decided to patch it up a bit." "Well, let me help you," Andy offered. Tom looked at him skeptically. "Can you handle it?" "I have a background in construction," Andy boasted. "I think I can manage the barn." "All right, if you want to help," Tom said, getting up from the bench. "Thank you." Kirsty stepped out onto the porch to tell her father something but stopped in her tracks. On the top step of the ladder leaning against the barn stood Andy, shirtless, hammering a board. Tom, he called out. Hand me that board. No, not the one by the fence. Here you go, Andy. Tom handed him the board and went to get the next one. Mom, you won't believe it. Kesty exclaimed from the threshold as she went back inside. Andy and Dad are fixing the barn, and they're acting like they've known each other for ages. Well, Vivian said. Andy is a good man. It's a shame fate has been so harsh with him. It would be nice if you had a husband like him. Mom, stop it, Kesty laughed. I'm just a regular nanny for his kids. It's not about status, but about the person's soul. Yours is bright and kind. Besides, you love his sons and treat them like your own, Vivian said. No, Mom, Kesty sighed. It's not possible. He still loves his wife and doesn't pay attention to other women, or so Anna told me. Do you like him? Vivian asked, looking at her daughter closely. Yes, I do, Kesty said quietly, lowering her gaze. In the evening, everyone gathered around the table for dinner. Sorry, Andy, Vivian said apologetically. Our table setting isn't exactly restaurant quality. Oh, don't worry, I'm already drooling, Andy replied. They all had dinner together and then went to bed. Andy fell asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow, exhausted from the day. He slept straight through the night, without dreams or worries. He was woken by the crowing of a rooster. He turned over and covered his head with the blanket. Dad, get up. Grandpa is complaining that you'll sleep through the whole fishing trip. Andy opened his eyes to see Tim holding a small bucket. I'm getting up, son, I'm getting up. He stretched and got out of bed, shivering slightly. It was early morning, dew covered the grass, and the air smelled fresh. After washing up, he quickly ate a few pancakes and washed them down with milk. At the gate, waiting for him were Grandpa Tom with fishing rods and Tim and Tom. Still a sleepyhead, Andy. Tom scolded him. You almost missed the whole fishing trip. Ah, I haven't slept so soundly in a long time, Andy smiled. Dad, we even woke up before Grandpa, Tim boasted. That's right, Grandpa laughed. I woke up because I felt someone staring at me. I opened my eyes, and there they were, standing by the bed, looking at me. They made their way to the lake and set up on the shore. They cast their fishing lines into the water and stood still, watching the bobbers. The boys quickly grew bored of sitting still and went off to explore the surroundings, chasing after butterflies. Finally, Andy caught his first fish and was as excited as a child. Tom frowned and focused even more intently on the still water, where his float was visible. Soon, he got lucky and proudly looked at Andy. After a while, there were about 20 fish of various sizes in the bucket. Isn't it time for a snack? Grandpa Tom suggested. Everyone agreed with pleasure. They spread a blanket on the grass and laid out some simple food. The boys ate with great appetite, having worked up an appetite in the fresh air. This is wonderful. Andy lay on his back and looked up at the cloudless sky. Sometimes you really need to pause your hectic life and just lie here, thinking about nothing. The drowsy Tim and Tom fell asleep in the shade, while the men decided to fish a little longer. However, the fishing was nearly over, the sun was high in the sky, and it was getting hot. It's time to head home, Tom said. Andy went to wake the boys, but they were sleeping so soundly that he felt sorry for them. Let them sleep, Tom said quietly. We'll carry them. He carefully handed Tim to Andy and picked up Tom, grabbing the bucket of fish as well. Seeing the men come into the yard with sleeping children in their arms, Kesty and Vivian rushed over to them, took the children, and carried them inside to put them to bed. Andy couldn't help but admire Kesty. She was wearing a simple polka-dot dress that made her look even more delicate. He noted again how much she resembled his late wife, Nancy. Nancy had also preferred simple clothes and, unlike many women, didn't enjoy shopping for outfits. She loved simple food and always cooked herself rather than ordering takeout. Andy sighed. In a month, it would be the anniversary of Nancy's death. 3 years had passed, yet the pain of her loss had not eased. Andy and Tom sat on the porch chatting about various things until Kesty came out and called everyone inside. "Come on in for lunch." At lunch, everyone enjoyed the fish that the men had caught earlier that morning. After washing it down with aromatic tea, Tom and Andy went back outside. "So, where's the village store?" Andy asked. "I'll show you." "Why do you need to know?" "It feels awkward. You're feeding me, so I should at least do something to thank you." "Don't even think about it," Tom said. "We're doing this out of the kindness of our hearts." "Well, I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart too," Andy said with a sly look at Tom. "Besides, a beer wouldn't hurt after such a lunch, right?" "You sure know how to persuade," Tom laughed. At the store, Andy got out of the car and headed for the entrance, politely greeting the women standing nearby. They nodded in response, looking at him with curiosity. "Who is this?" asked Sally, the town's main gossip. "He seems to be a relative of Vivian and Tom from the city," answered her neighbor. "No," another woman objected, "he's Kesty's new husband. She came here with 2 kids. I saw it. They say she left her husband and got involved with this rich man. Did you see his car?" "No way," Sally exclaimed, waving her hands. "She seems like such a sweet and quiet girl. But it turns out she's jumping from man to man." "And where did you hear that?" Pamela, a longtime friend of Vivian, asked sternly as she came out of the store. "You foolish gossips. Don't you dare open your mouths and tarnish the girl's reputation, N." She gave the quieted women a scornful look and walked away with her head held high. In the store, Andy bought candies, cookies, sugar, butter, the most expensive beer, and pretty much everything that caught his eye. He asked the shopkeeper where he could get some meat for a barbecue that evening. Returning to the house, he began unloading bags from the trunk and bringing them inside. Vivian was surprised to see yet another bag of groceries. "Did you rob the store?" she asked, worried. "No," he laughed. "I made your store a year's revenue. By the way, I'm planning to treat you all to a barbecue tonight." "You bought a lot of sweets," Tom grumbled, "and I bet you forgot the beer." "I didn't forget." "Here," Andy handed him a large bag with clinking beer bottles. Andy and Tom took a break to rest, while the women went outside to sit on a bench, basking in the spring sun. "We'll miss you when you're gone," Vivian sighed. "We've grown used to the kids. They're such a delight." "Yes, the children are wonderful. Tim is starting school this year. Someday, I'll have to part with them, they won't need a nanny anymore," Kesty said wistfully, gazing into the distance. "Mom," she turned to her mother. "What if I adopt a child from the orphanage later?" "Don't rush, my dear." Vivian embraced Kesty. "Perhaps God will give you your own children. Life is unpredictable. But would you be against me adopting a child who isn't mine by birth?" "There are no strange children, dear. Children are not to blame for not having parents, and everyone dreams of having them. But for now, don't hurry." "All right, let's get our things packed," Kesty said, standing up from the bench. "We'll have no time later this evening." Andy and Tom had grown quite close over this time. Now, they both went back to the porch, settled into chairs, and started drinking beer, smoking, and talking heart to heart. "You're a wise man, Tom," Andy began. "It's not me who's wise, it's just that life is like this. We only have one life to live, and we should live it fully, without wasting time on unnecessary fuss. Tell me, how do you get rid of emotional pain when it gnaws at you every day?" Tom looked at Andy thoughtfully. "I'll tell you this, you need to experience the pain and let it go. Never hide the pain inside you. You have to live with it for a while, cry, scream, let it run its course, and eventually, it will get easier. And most importantly, don't shut yourself off from life. Gradually, return to it. And never close your heart to love. Love yourself, your children, and other people. Life goes on regardless. Thank you, Andy said, hugging Tom. You've given me the most important advice. I feel sorry for my daughter, Tom said. Her life hasn't turned out well. Her husband was a scoundrel. But my daughter is very good. She told me she wasn't married. Andy was surprised. She's not now, she got divorced. She didn't really have a husband, he just wanted an apartment. When he found a better option, he left her and even accused her of infertility. But the new wife wasn't carrying his child and lied to him that he was the father. Tom stubbed out his cigarette. But what are we doing, gossiping? Andy, are you going to grill the barbecue? The barbecue turned out delicious, juicy, and tender. Grandma Vivian had put the boys to bed and dozed off beside them. The men were still sitting at the table, chatting, while Kirsty, draped in a warm shawl, went outside and sat on the bench. She felt a pang of sadness at the thought of leaving the home where she had spent her entire childhood and youth. How wonderful it was that Tim and Tom had come into her life, and she cared for them with such tenderness and love. She closed her eyes, enjoying the peace and quiet. Am I interrupting? Kirsty jolted and opened her eyes to find Andy standing next to her. No, of course not. Please, have a seat. She shifted slightly to make room. The sky is so starry, he said, looking up. Kirsty said nothing, remembering how he had told the children about their mom being a star shining in the sky. You have very good parents, simple and very kind people. Yes, Kirsty confirmed, I love them very much. Now I understand where you get your warmth from, he said, looking at her intently and shivering. He felt as though Nancy, with her hair down as she always loved, was sitting next to him, radiating that special warmth. Andy shook his head. It's a shame, but we have to leave tomorrow, Andy said with a sigh of regret. Of course, we've already packed, so we'll have breakfast and hit the road. Kirsty, thank you so much. Thank you for letting me spend this time with my parents and my beloved Tim and Tom. I'm sorry, but I need to go to bed now. We have an early start tomorrow. She got up from the bench and headed toward the house. Andy watched her go and wondered if Tom was right, and if it was time to open his heart to new feelings, as life goes on. Vivian cried as she said goodbye to Tim and Tom the next day. She hugged the boys tightly, who were also wiping away tears and didn't want to leave the village they had come to love. Sitting in the back seat of the car, Kirsty looked back and saw her parents standing by the house, waving goodbye to the departing car. At the cottage, a cheerful Anna greeted them, hugging the boys and Kirsty in turn, having missed them during their sudden separation. Life went on as usual. Kirsty continued taking care of the children. One morning, she saw Anna getting ready to go somewhere. Are you heading to town? Kirsty asked. No, Anna replied sadly, I'm going to the cemetery. Today is the anniversary of Nancy's death. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, Kirsty said, covering her mouth. It's okay, I should go. Percy has arrived. Anna picked up her bag and headed toward the door. Kirsty went upstairs to the children's room. The boys were sitting at a small table. Tim was showing his brother letter blocks and explaining how they are pronounced. Kirsty watched them with affection, approached, and patted each of them on the head. Kirsty, I'm teaching Tom to read, Tim said, turning to her. He'll be going to school soon, just like me. Of course, Kirsty agreed, and you'll help him with his homework. Tim looked proudly at his younger brother. Tim, you already know how to read, right? Please, read us a book with Tom, and we'll listen. The boy took a book from the shelf and began to read, carefully pronouncing the words. Kirsty and Tom sat on the bed, listening intently. Tom snuggled up to Kirsty, who embraced him and held him close. In the evening, after putting the children to bed, Kirsty, as usual, went downstairs and entered Anna's room. Anna was sitting in a chair, holding a photo of Nancy. Come in, Kirsty, Anna said. She set the photo on the nightstand. I've been sitting here, reminiscing about my girl. I spent a long time at the cemetery today, by her grave, talking about how we live, about her little boys, how good their nanny is, and how much she loves them. Kesti lowered her eyes, feeling embarrassed. You know, Anna continued, it seemed to me that Nancy in the photo on the gravestone was smiling at me. I used to leave the cemetery with a heavy heart, but today I felt somehow lighter. We planted a white lilac by Nancy's grave because she loved it so much. While I was sitting there, a little bird landed on the lilac branch and sang so joyfully. Maybe it was Nancy's soul singing because everything is okay with us. That's quite possible, Kesti nodded. I've read that after death, a person's soul sees their loved ones and tries to help them in some way, either by coming in dreams or sending signs. Nancy never comes to me in dreams, Anna sighed heavily, maybe to avoid upsetting me. But Andy said that Nancy sometimes comes to him. He says she always appears in white, with her hair down, entering his bedroom but never crossing the threshold. She just stands there, looking at him. A few times, Andy got out of bed and went to her, trying to embrace her, but he only embraced emptiness. He's never sure if it was a dream or reality. I've noticed that the next day, he always seems off, sad, and quiet. I feel so sorry for him. They say time heals, but it doesn't seem to be the case for us. Wishing Anna good night, Kesti went upstairs and entered the children's room. The boys were sound asleep. Kesti adjusted their blankets, stood by their side for a moment, listening to their sleepy breathing, and then headed to her own room. She approached the window, drew the curtain aside, and looked at the starry sky. Finding the brightest star shining above, Kesti addressed it. Nancy, I'm so sorry that you left this world so young. Don't worry, your sons are doing well. They love and remember you. Your husband Andy misses you dearly and Anna always keeps you in her thoughts. Tears streamed down Kesti's cheeks. She felt deeply sorry for the beautiful woman Nancy. Suddenly, she thought the star she was talking to had brightened, as if responding to Kesti, saying she could hear her. The girl waved to the star, as Tom and Tim had done, and, wiping her tears, stepped away from the window. She lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. Then she turned on the light, picked up a book from the nightstand, and tried to read, but her thoughts were elsewhere, so she set the book aside. Kesti remembered there was a first aid kit in the dining room downstairs that might contain some soothing medication. Wrapping herself in a white robe, she went downstairs. The house was dark, lit only by a few small nightlights. Kesti opened the door to the dining room, which was illuminated only by moonlight coming through the window, and froze in the doorway. At the table in the dark sat Andy, with an almost empty bottle of brandy in front of him, and a glass in his hand, which he had just emptied. The man stared out the window, speaking softly. Well, Nancy, another year has passed without you. Forgive me for not being able to keep you safe. I constantly berate myself for not insisting on your treatment. Kesti stood at the doorway, afraid to move. Thank you for our sons, Andy continued, wiping his tears, they're growing up so wonderfully. Do you remember how we dreamed of having a daughter too? But it's not meant to be now, he sighed heavily, you come to me sometimes, but you never let me touch you. You vanish immediately. I wish I could at least touch you for a second, hold you tight, kiss your soft lips. I'm begging you, the man pleaded, please come to me one more time. He fell silent, turned to the table to pour the remaining brandy into his glass, but his hand froze in midair. In the doorway of the dining room, he saw a woman in a white robe with her hair down. Nancy, he whispered, have you come to me? Kesti stood still, unsure of what to do next. Nancy, don't go, my dear, stay with me a little longer. I'm so lost without you, Andy pleaded. Kesti stood with her eyes wide open, watching him. On one hand, she wanted to turn around and run back to her room, but on the other hand, she felt so sorry for Andy, who was genuinely happy to see her as his wife. She decided to stay, hoping it might ease his heart a bit. Andy stood up from his chair and carefully approached the door. He stretched out his hand, repeating just one thing. "Don't disappear, please, don't disappear, let me at least touch you." He came close to Kirsty, gently stroked her hair, pulled her towards him, and kissed her on the lips. Then he lifted her into his arms and carried her to his bedroom. Kirsty woke up in the middle of the night, horrified by what had just happened. She turned her head and saw Andy peacefully asleep beside her, smiling in his sleep. She quietly got out of bed, trying not to wake him, gathered her things, and left the room. Back in her own room, Kirsty sat on the bed and burst into tears. She didn't know how she would ever face Andy again after what had happened between them. She was trembling with anxiety. Kirsty took a hot shower to warm herself up and then, wrapped in a blanket, sat up the rest of the night without closing her eyes. Gathering her courage, she decided to go downstairs and apologize to Andy for misleading him by pretending to be his wife, purely out of genuine sympathy for him. Andy was having breakfast in the dining room and seemed to be in good spirits. "Good morning, Kirsty," he said. "You look wonderful today. Please, sit down and have some coffee with me." Kirsty looked at him and realized that Andy didn't remember what had happened between them last night. Apparently, he had been so drunk that he didn't realize his actions. "No, thank you," Kirsty said, backing away. "I usually have breakfast with the boys. I should go check if they're awake." She turned and quickly headed up the stairs to the second floor. A little while later, Anna walked into the dining room and looked at Andy with surprise. "You seem unusually cheerful this morning, Andy. What's got you so happy?" she asked. "Nancy visited me last night and even let me touch her. She was so gentle and warm." Anna looked at Andy skeptically. "How much did you drink last night?" "Honestly, I don't remember," he admitted, lowering his head in guilt. "Percy drove me to the cemetery. Then we went to some restaurant, and I had a bit to drink at home." Anna shook her head. "Anna, don't scold me. You know I don't usually drink. But I was feeling so miserable yesterday. I used alcohol to dull the pain." "I understand," Anna waved her hand dismissively. "You were drunk, so it's no wonder you imagine Nancy." "You think so?" Andy frowned. It felt so real. "But maybe you're right. I should drink less." He got up from his chair, put on his jacket, and checked his watch. "Well, I need to go. Percy's here. See you this evening." Anna watched him leave and sighed. "Oh, Andy, you really need to get married, you're wearing yourself out. But it seems like no other women exist for you." Seeing that Andy had left, Kirsty went back downstairs to have some coffee. The sleepless night was taking its toll. "Kirsty, what's wrong?" Anna asked with concern. "Are you feeling unwell?" No, I'm fine," Kirsty reassured her. "Just a headache." "Andy has a headache too," Anna smirked, "but for a different reason. Can you believe he told me he was hugging Nancy who visited him again?" Hearing this, Kirsty turned pale and grabbed the edge of the table. "Are you scared?" Anna asked, her concern growing. "Don't worry, Andy had a bit too much to drink. It's no surprise he imagined things. He doesn't really remember anything." "Anna, could you feed the boys when they wake up?" Kirsty asked. "I'm going to lie down for a bit, my head hurts even more." "Go ahead, Kirsty, get some rest," Anna said, patting her hand. Kirsty went into her room, lay down on the bed, and immediately fell asleep, sleeping almost until noon. When she woke up, she decided that nothing too terrible had happened. The most important thing was that Andy didn't remember anything, and Kirsty was determined not to tell anyone about it. Gradually, she began to forget what had happened between her and Andy. One morning, as soon as Kirsty got out of bed, she nearly collapsed. Her head spun, and her vision blurred. She sank back onto the bed, unsure of what was happening to her. After sitting on the bed for a while, she got up again, and this time everything seemed fine. She decided it was probably due to the dreary weather outside. She went downstairs to have coffee, but as soon as she smelled the coffee, she felt nauseous and barely managed to run to the bathroom. What is going on today, she thought. This has never happened before. Upstairs, there was noise. The boys had woken up, and Kirsty hurried to them. The day went by normally, and she had almost forgotten about the morning's incident. She started to worry only the next day. As soon as she smelled coffee again, she felt nauseous once more and barely made it to the bathroom. Looking at herself in the mirror above the sink, Kirsty wiped the sweat from her forehead and feared that she might have the same illness that Nancy had. After all, Anna had once mentioned that Nancy often experienced dizziness and nausea. "Kirsty, why do you look so pale?" Anna asked, noticing Kirsty coming out of the bathroom. "Don't worry, it's fine," Kirsty reassured her. "You must be imagining things." Anna looked at her closely but said nothing. The morning sickness didn't trouble Kirsty anymore, but now everything began to irritate her, especially the children, with whom she spent a lot of time. She didn't understand what was happening to her. Previously, the boys' antics only made her smile, but now she was ready to scold them for the slightest mischief. Kirsty tried to control her emotions as best she could, but the boys noticed that their nanny was much stricter and no longer participated in their games as before. Sometimes, however, she was overcome with such tenderness towards them that she constantly hugged them, kissing their heads. Even her food preferences changed. At meals, she now made sure to eat something salty first before moving on to the main dishes. "Kirsty, I don't understand what's going on with you lately," Anna began cautiously. "Your mood swings a lot, you're craving salty food, and you've become so lethargic. Are you by any chance pregnant?" she asked directly. The girl laughed. "From whom, Anna? You know I don't have a husband. And we divorced because I can't have children." "That's strange," Anna shook her head. "You should see a doctor. We don't want a repeat of what happened with Nancy." She fell silent, not finishing her sentence, wiping away a tear that had rolled down her cheek. To avoid upsetting Anna, Kirsty promised her that she would undergo a full examination at the clinic. Taking a day off in the middle of the week, she went there. The general practitioner asked questions and examined her, then wrote a referral for tests and, smiling, said, "I think I might know the cause of your symptoms." "Doctor, is it something serious?" Kirsty asked, frightened. "Well, it depends on how you look at it," the doctor replied vaguely. "Here's a referral to room 102. I think they'll confirm my diagnosis there." She handed Kirsty a small piece of paper with a seal. Kirsty took it with trembling hands and went to find the right office. Approaching the door, she saw the number 102 and the sign reading "Gynecologist." Kirsty timidly knocked, and upon hearing, "Come in," she cautiously opened the door. 30 minutes later, she emerged from the office in complete confusion, unsure how to react to what the doctor had told her after the examination. "Congratulations, you're pregnant." Pregnant? It can't be." Kirsty stood in the middle of the room, unable to believe what she had heard. "Why can't it be?" the doctor asked, surprised. "It's quite a normal occurrence for a woman." "I can't have children," Kirsty said, tears welling up in her eyes. "Who told you that?" "The doctors." "No, my ex-husband." "Ah, your husband," the doctor laughed. "No, dear, you are indeed pregnant. By the way," the doctor frowned, "do you want to keep the baby or keep it?" "Of course, keep it." Kirsty interrupted. "I've dreamed about this for so long." "Well, good for you. I'll write you a referral for the necessary tests and give you the appropriate recommendations." Kirsty sat on a bench outside the hospital, unable to believe what had happened. She was going to have a baby. After years of waiting, hoping, and disappointment, she would finally become a mother. But what about Tim and Tom? Kirsty wondered. "I won't be able to continue working as a nanny. It's a shame to part with them," she wiped a tear away. "I've grown so attached to them." And they to me. What should I do? Kesti couldn't find answers to these questions yet. She got up from the bench and headed toward the bus stop. While on the bus, she decided that the most important thing now was to see Tim off to first grade, as she had promised him she would be there for this important day. After that, she would figure out what to do next. For now, she decided not to tell anyone about her pregnancy. Kesti, what did the doctor say? A worried Anna met her at the door. Nothing serious. Kesti smiled, just a bit of overwork. Maybe you should ask Andy for a leave of absence, suggested Anna. Go somewhere and rest. Great idea, Kesti agreed. As soon as Tim starts school, I'll think about taking a vacation. Let's go, I'll make you some herbal tea, Anna said. You must be hungry too. After lunch, Kesti went up to her room, looked at herself in the mirror from all sides, and gently stroked her stomach, which was still completely unnoticeable. You're my little one, only mine. No one will know who your father is, but I'm very grateful to him for the happiness that will soon be mine. The morning of the first school day was warm and sunny. Tim stood eagerly in the hall, waiting for everyone to finally gather so they could head to the school where he would be starting. They drove in 2 cars. Kesti and the children went in Andy's car, while Anna drove with Percy. The entrance to the school was decorated with balloons and bright posters. Music was playing. The first graders clung to their parents, curiously looking around, while the older students joyfully reunited, having missed each other during the summer break. The school principal addressed everyone through the microphone, congratulating them on the new school year. The atmosphere was festive and solemn. Kesti and Anna stood with teary eyes, admiring Tim, their first grader, who stood with a serious expression on his face. The first graders, led by their teacher, climbed the steps to the school entrance and headed to their very first lesson. Before entering the building, Tim looked back and waved at his family and nanny. Kesti's heart ached with joy and sadness simultaneously. She was happy that Tim was starting a new chapter in his life, making new friends and discovering new interests. But she was also saddened by the fact that soon, very soon, she would have to say goodbye to Tim and Tom, whom she had grown to love deeply. Percy drove them home while Andy went to work. Kesti gazed out the car window, contemplating how unfair life could be. Why was it always necessary to make difficult choices? As time passed, Kesti found it increasingly hard to bring herself to tell Andy about her resignation, even though each day it became more challenging to perform her duties as a nanny. Thankfully, Tim was at school for the first half of the day, but Tom also demanded her full attention. Kesti was constantly feeling sleepy and wished she could just lie in bed. Her stomach had started to grow, and she tried to hide it by wearing loose clothing. Kesti, did I notice correctly, or have you gained weight? Anna asked directly when Kesti came into her room that evening. Kesti lowered her head, realizing it was pointless to hide her condition any longer. I'm expecting a baby, she said quietly. A baby? What baby? Anna asked, confused. I'm expecting my baby. Kesti still didn't lift her eyes. You're pregnant? Anna asked, astonished. Yes, Kesti replied briefly. And I suspected it from the start, Anna said irritably. But you deceived me, saying it was just ordinary overwork. Kesti sank into a chair and started crying. Anna looked at her helplessly, then approached and gently stroked Kesti's hair. Why are you crying? It's wonderful that you're going to be a mother. You've wanted this for so long. Yes, I've wanted it, Kesti sobbed, but now I'll have to leave this house and part with everyone. Well, what can we do? Anna shrugged, the most important thing now is for you to think about the baby. And you can always come to visit us, we'll be very happy to see you, she hugged Kesti. By the way, has the baby's father heard the news? Kesti pulled away and looked at Anna with fear. No, she answered quickly, he doesn't know anything. This is my baby, only mine. Kesti began to nervously pace the room. Calm down, Anna said, guiding Kesti back to the chair, of course, it's your baby. But the father should probably know about its existence. Why? He already has children, and besides, he loves another woman. I'm completely irrelevant to him. Well, Anna sighed, it's okay. You'll manage with the baby on your own, and your parents will help too. I just don't know how to tell Andy about my resignation. He'll probably be upset that he'll have to find a new nanny again. Kesty looked sadly at Anna. Don't worry, I'll talk to him. I think he'll understand. Thank you so much. Kesty finally smiled. But I don't know how to explain to the boys that they'll have a new nanny. I recommend being honest with them. They're very smart and like to be spoken to like adults. Just don't disappear suddenly, it might scare them, and they might think you're leaving them like their mom Nancy did. Kesty stood up from the chair and embraced the woman. She was deeply grateful for the support and advice, which were crucial in her current situation. The next evening, Andy invited Kesty into his office. Anna told me everything, he said, looking directly at Kesty. I must congratulate you, but to be honest, I can't say I'm thrilled about this news. Kesty stood silently, her eyes cast down. In this situation, he continued, I won't keep you. I just have one request. Please stay on until I find a new nanny. Of course, Kesty said, I'll stay with the children as long as needed. Don't worry. She left the office, her legs trembling, but she was relieved that the conversation was over and she no longer had to hide her condition. As soon as the door closed behind Kesty, Andy went to the window and looked out at the yard. It was autumn. The grass was withered, the trees were shedding their leaves, and a sense of melancholy settled over him. But why was such a wonderful woman like Kesty leaving his home? When she first started working here, she had mentioned that she wasn't married. How did it come to pass that she was pregnant? Yet, why was he even pondering this? Kesty was young and beautiful, and of course, she had her own life. He still struggled to look at other women without comparing them to Nancy. But Kesty was so much like his wife, kind, tender, and she treated his sons as if they were her own. He sat at his desk, cradling his head in his hands. Only now was he beginning to realize how much he cared for Kesty. Her father had been right, he needed to open his heart and let go of the past. His heart was open now, but it was too late. As the saying goes, we don't cherish what we have until it's gone. Why had it taken him so long to understand this, only when it was too late to change anything? In frustration and helplessness, Andy swept the papers off his desk, scattering them all over the floor. Kesty decided to talk to the boys the next day. After waiting for Tim to return from school, she fed them lunch, and they all went up to the playroom together. She sat the boys down on their chairs and, gathering her courage, said, "You're growing up, so I want to talk to you like grown-ups," she said tenderly, looking at the brothers. "I want to let you know that you'll have a new nanny soon. We're getting 2 nannies." Tim frowned. "No, you'll have 1 nanny. But it won't be me, it will be someone else." "Where will you go?" Tom asked. "It turns out I'll be leaving you soon." Kesty watched the boys, observing their reactions. "Will you disappear like our mom did?" Tim sniffled, "Will you become a star too?" Seeing his brother, Tom also began wiping away tears. "Oh, don't cry, little one," she hugged him, "I won't disappear. I'm just going to have a baby, and I need to take care of it." The boys stopped crying and stared at Kesty. "But I will always love you and will even come to visit," she reassured them, struggling to hold back her own tears. "You'll come to visit us with your baby?" Tim asked, surprised. "Yes," Kesty said, "and we'll all play together like before." "Not right away, of course, but when the baby is a bit older." "That's a long wait," Tim sighed. "Well, you've grown up quickly. Look, you're already in school. Soon Tom will start school too," she patted the boys on the head, "maybe you can come visit us too." "Deal." "Great," the children cheered, "we'll visit each other." 2 weeks later, Kesty stood in the hallway, saying goodbye to the people who had become so dear to her. Tim and Tom cried, hugging their beloved nanny Kesty, and she wiped their tears and said, "Don't cry, my dears. I love you very much and always will." But the boys continued to cling to her, their tears flowing. "We'll see each other soon," she promised, vowing to visit the boys she had grown so attached to. The new nanny, Julia, hugged the boys and led them to the playroom. On the stairs, Tim and Tom stopped, waving to Kesty and sending air kisses. "Looks like Julia is liked by the kids," Anna said, glancing at the stairs and speaking to Kesty. "Yes," Kesty agreed, "I like her too. She's kind and calm. She has 2 grandchildren, although they live far away, in another country, and she misses them very much. So I think she won't mistreat our boys." "Kesty, I'm going to miss you," Anna cried and hugged the girl. Kesty also started to cry. She had grown very attached to Anna, who had initially seemed very strict to her. "I'll miss you too, but we'll keep in touch frequently. You have my phone number, right? Take care of yourself, my dear, and take care of the baby too," Anna gently patted Kesty's belly. Andy came out of the dining room and approached Kesty. Anna discreetly stepped away. He handed her a thick envelope. "This is your salary, and a bonus for your good work." He looked Kesty straight in the eyes and scolded himself again for missing his chance with her. She looked back at him, knowing she would miss him terribly. She had long been and hopelessly in love with him, hiding that love even from herself, understanding that she had no chance of winning the heart of a man who would always belong to someone else. Her love was unrequited, which made Kesty a bit sad, but at the same time, she was very grateful to fate for carrying a part of the man she loved within her. "Goodbye, Kesty," he said. Andy took her hand and held it in his. "Thank you for everything you've done for my sons, for bringing all of us back to life." Kesty wanted to respond, but couldn't. Her throat tightened, and she turned away so Andy wouldn't see her tears. Percy drove her home, helped her with her things, and Kesty was left alone in the empty apartment, where she finally allowed herself to cry. After having some tests and a routine checkup, Kesty decided to visit her parents in the village, who didn't know about her pregnancy yet. Seeing her daughter at the doorstep of their home, Vivian immediately became anxious. "Kesty, what happened? You never come to visit us in the middle of the week." "Calm down, Mom, everything's fine. I just missed you so much, so I decided to come." "And the kids? Who are they with?" Vivian asked anxiously. "They're with Julia, their new nanny." "I don't understand," Vivian frowned. "Were you fired, or did you leave on your own?" Kesty didn't get a chance to answer. Her father walked into the room and stopped at the threshold when he saw her. "Sweetheart, you're here. Let me hug you." He took a step forward, but she stepped back, stretching out her hand to protect her protruding belly. "Kesty, are you pregnant?" he asked, shocked. "Kesty, is it true?" Vivian gasped, waving her hands in disbelief. "Yes, Mom, it's true. Can't you tell? Did you get back together with Giles?" her mother asked cautiously. "Where did you get that idea?" Kesty replied. "No, I've completely forgotten about him." "Then who is the father of the baby?" Vivian asked, bewildered. "Mom, let's talk about it later," Kesty said. "I'm tired from the trip and want to lie down. My lower back is hurting." "It doesn't matter who the father is. What's important is that we're going to have a grandchild," Tom said. "Sweetheart, are you hungry?" her mother asked. "No, Mom, not right now. I'm going to lie down." Kesty went to her room, lay down on the bed, and fell asleep immediately, even before feeling her mother cover her with a warm blanket. She woke up when it was already dark outside. Her parents were quietly talking in the living room, and the smell of food filled the air. She stretched lazily and realized she was very hungry. "Come sit down, dear. I'll get you some soup," Vivian said, seeing her daughter enter the room. "And I made your favorite pancakes too." Kesty enjoyed her soup and washed down the delicious pancakes with milk, leaning back contentedly in her chair. Her parents admired their daughter, who looked radiant thanks to her pregnancy. "So, what will it be? A grandson or a granddaughter?" Tom asked. "I don't know, Dad," Kirsty said, patting her belly. "I don't mind. I didn't even have an ultrasound to find out the baby's gender. Whatever it is, it will be. We'll be happy with either a grandson or a granddaughter. The main thing is that the baby is healthy," Vivian said with a smile. "We need to find the crib in the attic tomorrow, the one you used to sleep in," Tom said. "Dad, it's too early to get the crib out." Kirsty laughed. "It's not too early," her father frowned. "I need to fix it up first. And by the way, we need to find the box with your old toys too. Vivian," he called to his wife, "do you remember where we hid it?" "Oh," Kirsty said suddenly. "Andy gave me such a bonus that it's enough for everything. Even for new toys." Vivian noticed the sparkle in Kirsty's eyes when she mentioned Andy's name. She decided to talk to her daughter when she had the chance. The next evening, after her father had gone to bed, they sat in Kirsty's room talking. Kirsty asked her mother about her childhood, whether she was well behaved or not. Vivian happily reminisced and shared stories of Kirsty's mischiefs. Casually, she asked, "So, who's the father of the baby?" "Andy," Kirsty said, biting her lip as she realized she had let it slip. Vivian looked at her daughter intently and asked directly, "Does Andy know that it's his child?" Kirsty covered her face with her hands, sighed heavily, and explained everything that had happened. "Kirsty, how could you?" her mother exclaimed. "You should have confessed everything to him. It's wrong. He needs to know that you're expecting his child." "No, Mom, no," Kirsty replied firmly. "Andy is a very honorable man, and he would probably have asked me to stay with him to raise the child together. But that would be out of duty, not love. And I can't do that. Every day I would fall more in love with him, only to receive indifference in return. The child would be the only thing connecting us, and in Andy's eyes, I'd just be a nanny for 3 kids. Well, I don't know, sweetheart," her mother sighed. "Maybe things could have worked out for the best in the future." "It's impossible," Kirsty hugged her mother. "I've seen how he still loves his wife. But soon I'll have a baby, which I've longed for and waited for so long." "Oh, I don't know," her mother repeated. "Mom, I have a favor to ask. Please don't tell anyone about what I've shared with you, not even Dad. Promise?" Kirsty pleaded with her mother. "All right, I promise," Vivian said with a smile. Kirsty frequently spoke with Anna, she updating her on what was happening at home. Julia was taking good care of the boys, helping Tim with his homework and reading to Tom, but the boys found her a bit boring. Due to her age, the nanny didn't join in their noisy games like Kirsty used to, and instead, she stood aside and watched to ensure nothing went wrong. Andy seemed to have grown melancholy. He stopped coming home for lunch and would head straight to his office after dinner. Anna also mentioned that he had removed Nancy's photograph from his desk and from the nightstand in his bedroom. Anna was unsure what to think. However, when the boys mentioned Kirsty in his presence, he would smile, and his eyes would warm up. One day, Kirsty went to the city for a checkup and forgot her phone at home. Vivian was preparing lunch when the phone rang. The display showed Anna's name. At first, Vivian hesitated to answer, but the call was persistent, and she thought it might be important, so she picked up. "Kirsty, why haven't you answered?" "I've been getting worried," Anna's voice sounded genuinely anxious. "This isn't Kirsty, it's her mother," Vivian responded. "Is everything all right with Kirsty?" Anna asked, now concerned. "Yes, everything is fine," Vivian said. "She went to the city and left her phone at home. I hope she went with her husband." "It's really slippery out there," Anna said. "With whom?" Vivian asked, confused. "With her husband," Anna said, now less confidently. "I mean, the father of the baby. And you don't know who Kirsty's baby's father is?" Vivian exclaimed. Kesty said you were very close when she lived in your house. How would I know who the father is? Anna was taken aback. Kesty never told me anything about him. I assumed it was her ex-husband. Giles? Vivian laughed. No, Kesty has completely forgotten about him. Then who? Anna continued to be puzzled. It seems she hasn't been seeing anyone else and even tried to spend her weekends with the children. It's your Andy. Vivian said, biting her tongue as she realized she had let something slip. Andy? Anna was speechless. Realizing there was no turning back, Vivian said. Don't think anything bad of him, we're not upset at all. We actually want to thank him very much. I don't understand, Anna pondered. I hadn't noticed anything like that between them. Kesty told me it happened unexpectedly. Vivian explained what her daughter had shared. So it was true. Anna gasped. I didn't pay attention when Andy said the woman he saw was gentle and warm. What should we do now? Anna sobbed. I didn't tell you anything. Vivian said, panicked. I promised Kesty I'd keep her secret, but I couldn't help but blurt it out. But only to you, no one else knows, not even my husband. We have to tell Andy. Anna said resolutely. No, don't even think about it. Vivian said. We will raise this child ourselves, and we don't need anything from you. Vivian ended the call and hung up. Kesty was helping her mother prepare lunch when she heard the sound of a car pulling up to the house. Mom, I think someone's arrived, she said. Don't be silly. Who could be coming here? You must be imagining things. I'll go and check the window. As soon as Kesty got up from the chair, the front door swung open, and Tim and Tom burst into the room, followed by Anna. Kesty, the children shouted as they ran to her, we missed you so much. Kesty stood in the middle of the room, unable to believe her eyes. My dear Kesty. Anna hugged her, tears streaming down her face. I missed you so much too. The boys were already hugging Vivian and telling her that they had come to take Kesty back home with them. How can you take Kesty? Vivian asked, puzzled. Who's going to stop her from coming with you? Come on in. What are you standing around for? Her father's voice called from the hallway. The door opened again, and her father walked in, followed by Andy holding a large bouquet of white roses. He stopped in the doorway and silently watched Kesty. Children, let's go. We'll take off your jackets, it's warm in the house, Vivian said, taking the children's hands and leading them to another room. Anna followed, casting a meaningful glance at Andy. I forgot my shovel in the yard, Tom said, winking at Kesty. I'll go get it, and he stepped outside. Andy and Kesty were left alone in the room. He handed her the bouquet, and Kesty inhaled their delicate fragrance. Kesty, Andy began, when you left our home, I realized how dear you were to me, and I was deeply saddened that you belonged to someone else and were even expecting a child with him. You can't imagine how happy I was when I learned from Anna that you're expecting my child and that there's no other man in your life. Forgive me for how awkwardly everything happened, but believe me, in my dreams, I only saw you and imagined holding you. I was even afraid to admit to myself that I had fallen in love with you, but your father was right, it was time to open my heart. I opened it, and you have forever found a home in it. Kesty, Andy knelt before her, I love you. Will you marry me? Kesty looked at him and suddenly gasped in surprise. The baby inside her had just kicked. She clutched her belly and laughed. Well, even the baby supports his daddy, she said, then looked at Andy and softly said. I forgive you. She thought for a moment and then said. I agree to marry you. The children rushed back into the room, surrounding their father and Kesty. Will you live with us now? They asked her. Yes, Kesty confirmed, I'll always be with you now. Hooray, the boys cheered. Grandma Vivian. Anna. Did you hear? Kesty is going to live with us forever. Little Tom approached Kesty and touched her belly. Are you really going to have a baby? Your belly is so big. Maybe you should have an elephant for us instead. Everyone laughed. Vivian started setting the table, and Anna volunteered to help. Andy hugged Kirsty and said, I hope we have a beautiful daughter who looks just like her mother. After all, we already have 2 sons, don't we? He looked at her intently. Yes, Kirsty replied seriously, we have the best sons in the world, and I love them very much. The house was filled with joyful commotion. Everyone was eagerly awaiting Kirsty and the baby's return from the hospital, with Andy having gone to pick them up. The day before, Vivian and Tom had arrived from the village, and everyone was asking Anna whether the new arrival was a grandson or granddaughter. I don't know, she replied. Andy didn't tell me if it's a boy or a girl. He just said, everything went well, Kirsty is feeling great, and the baby is fine. And he added that there's a surprise waiting for us. Finally, a car pulled up to the porch, driven by Percy. Andy got out, holding a bundle wrapped in a blue ribbon. Everyone gathered around the happy father, admiring the sleeping baby, who was making little cooing sounds. He looks like you, Andy, Vivian said softly. So, what did you decide to name the boy? Tom asked, examining his grandson. Kirsty and I decided to name him Aaron. By the way, where's Kirsty? The women suddenly remembered. I'm here, came Kirsty's voice. Standing at the threshold, Kirsty also held a bundle wrapped in a pink ribbon. So you had twins? Everyone exclaimed, staring at the delighted mother. A boy and a girl. Well, daughter, you've done great, Tom said, beaming with pride. Now everyone gathered around Kirsty, admiring the baby girl. She looks just like her mother, Vivian said, her eyes filling with tears. What will you name her? I've decided to name her Nancy, Kirsty replied quietly. Everyone fell silent in amazement, looking at Kirsty and Andy, who turned to her and said, Thank you, my love, for filling my life with such light and joy. Thank you for the little angels you've given me. Thank you for the boundless love you give to our sons. Kirsty gazed tenderly at her husband and rested her head on his shoulder. Once she had dreamed of having at least 1 child, and now she had 4, 3 sons and a daughter. And beside her was a loving and beloved man. She was truly, incredibly happy.